Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Your gas is free. Your gas is free. In a debt-based economy. Here's the Webster Report with Paul the Gasman Webster.
Hello and welcome to the Webster Report on this, the 17th of November 2024. It's the usual stuff, isn't it, that we're going to be talking about. We have a special guest coming on tonight. He did a talk at the same venue that me and Alex did a talk at, which we are looking at some practical solutions of this evil, manipulated system that we are born into and we are taught to act in a certain way. And many people over the years have looked at ways that we could start to take power back and this, that and the other. And it encompasses a lot. But when you get people on who are doing something specific and they're not just randomly jumping everywhere, but they're actually coming together and making something, that's where we need to start looking at. And that's what our guest, Nick Kitchen's, going to be talking about. You'll find the stuff that he's going to be speaking of, common sense, but it's about bringing people together. This organisation of people, this is why the system's never been worried about us, because they know that we can't organise. We might have some leaders, but we can't seem to organise. And it's always been the difficult part. I remember 10 years ago trying to get meetings going and people weren't interested, especially when you tell them that they shouldn't be paying bills. Because they can afford to pay bills, they don't want that hassle. It's now we've got the flip side of it, where people can't afford to pay those bills. Well, when you can't afford to pay them, what do? Well, that's when you want to start looking around. You know, that's where I got all the messages from. How do you make this go away? 8 years ago, I needed the numbers and we could have gone into the courts and we could have flooded them courts and we would have made them do something. But it was because we didn't have that organisation, that movement. You know, and we've seen it so often with this truth movement that every time it starts to gain some traction, people get into it and divide it and pull it apart because they can't have this. But as I've always said, it's not the system that's the problem. It's how we act in the system and it's the people who run it. Those are the things that always needed to change. Maybe now, because I've had a lot of great feedback from many parts of this country over the past week, and people are really coming together to want to do something. So this is why we've had to wait a few weeks to get Nick on. This is why we need people like this to say, well, look, this is how I found out what was going on. This is what I decided to do. Now, this is the plan, and this is how other people are coming into it. So it's what Alex brought up weeks ago, that it's about talking to your neighbour when you go out to your car. Just say, hey, all right, oh, this isn't so bad and this isn't so good, and just get some chit-chat going. And then let's see where we go, because I think we're finding a lot of people are on, or at least turning the page to get onto the same sheet as we all are. Before I do go any further, there's quite a lot of people that will already know this. But people who've been following my story will have known, because of everything that happened, me and my daughter became a bit estranged because she saw what the system did to me. And we needed some time apart because obviously I was in bits at the time. Coming back to all this stuff with what's happened in the last 3 years with work and everything put me right back. So it's only now that I'm again climbing back up, and I've just got to the top of that. And I got a text message on Wednesday from my ex-wife who said, me and Nicola are coming to see you tomorrow. So I opens the door. My daughter walks in as if she's never been away from me, big smile on her face, slaps a scan picture to my chest and said, "There you go, Grandad." So this week I found out that I'm going to be a granddad, and this now makes me buckle down even more, because I want to have a better world for my daughter and now my grandchild to come into. And if we can't get that, then we should be working towards that. It's that simple. There's no ifs or buts about this now. It's time. It's time. Very much so. And without further ado, how are you doing, son? Are we lagging again, or can you hear me, Alex? Hello?
Not so bad. Not so well.
I think you're way behind me. I think you're way behind me again here, son.
Right. Can anybody else? Can anybody else hear this, or is it lagged? Get some comments.
I can hear you. I can hear you, but you're answering me 5 to 10 seconds after I finish speaking.
That's strange.
It is.
Yeah. Well, let's just see how we get on. Let's see how we get on.
Okay, well, whilst we're waiting, I'll bring in Nick. Nick, how are you doing?
You nearly caught me scrolling through my phone. Sorry.
No worries. Alex is about 10 years behind us anyway. So, Nick, I'll give you a bit of a build-up, but I mean, there's nobody can introduce you to other people like yourself. So, Nick, introduce yourself. Tell us where you've come from, how you've started, where you're at, what you expect. Let's have a conversation, and let's see if people in the chat room and people who will watch this not only live but afterwards and say, "Hey, I think we might be able to do that in our area."
Right. Well, thanks, Paul. So my name's Nick Kitchen. I'm from Lincolnshire, and I've been around for a while, seen a lot of things going on. Of course, a lot of this was or has been apparent in the last 5 years. I think people are probably familiar with what's been going on. But this is not just something that's been engineered over the last 5 years. It's been going on for a lot longer than that. I'm not saying that I knew about it. I knew some things, 9/11 was a turning point, I think, for a lot of people. Various things that have gone on since then. But that's, I wouldn't say that was even the start of it all. You can go back quite a few years, but coming back really to the last 5 years, that I think what the term is where people wake up, or have woken up, or have realised that there's something that's not quite right. Now, there are people that probably haven't woken up, but the last 5 years, I think, has brought people together, people of like mind, and this is important. Paul and I were discussing before we went live about the some of the things that Paul has done, that if there were more people that did a certain thing at a certain time, we wouldn't have probably been in a certain mess. And this is right across the board. And people, people are the solution. Coming together is the solution. You can have all the information in the world, and it can be groundbreaking stuff. But if you don't use it and apply it and give it some backing, it's probably useless, because it will just, it's like a library full of books, contains all the world's information. You don't read it, don't apply it, well, what good is it really? So with all of the start off with, when I started, started the last 5 years, stand in the parks, quite a few people have done that and still do to this day, and I'm still a member of many in different counties, because where I live, I'm very close to different counties. They're 8, 10, 15, 20 miles away. Probably Grimsby's the furthest that I travel, Grimsby and Thetford. But this has increased my circle of friends. It's increased my knowledge of things, increased my scope, and with that brings a lot of solidarity and a lot of bonding of people's. It's not necessarily about one stand in the park bonding with another, though. It's important that we do. Like with the many different groups that exist in this country, coming together is very important. Some will align better than others, and the organisation that I'm passionate about, and belong to, and focus on, which is the Community Assembly of the British Isles, is about bringing people together, groups, bringing them into a framework of an assembly, which I will explain a bit more later. But the first and foremost is just to have a point where we can focus, where we can discuss, where we can align, where we can exchange various things. And it's not about any one group or any one person, or where you stand, or what information you've got necessarily. But if you are able to bring things together that work or have worked, or even look at the things that haven't worked, then and be able to discuss that and use that knowledge, you'll be a lot better for it. And no one group or one person's probably got the ideal solution, because there's been many things that have been tried, and some have worked and some have not. And the whole landscape keeps changing and developing. The ones that what we call the system, I suppose, they're always changing. They're always looking at what we're doing. We may get a little win here and there. We may get ahead sometimes, but then, they may close the door on us in one way. But, we have to keep together and keep pushing forward as people. People are successful individually. Don't have to be part of a group necessarily, but it does help to be able to talk to others, and the physical relationship with others is, I feel, is very, very important. It's spiritual and physical, and if you're doing the right things, and you're doing it truthfully, authentically, with love, with compassion, and what we do in the community assemblies are run under natural and divine law, causing no harm and no loss. I don't think that you can go wrong, really. But of course, this is a learning game. Nobody's perfect. No group is perfect. Nobody has got the ultimate solution, possibly. But I certainly feel, and hopefully Paul and Alex will agree, that we are a lot further forward than we were 5 years ago. and we're not in a place where we are actually losing. And we may not be winning streaks ahead, but I would certainly say that the system is not winning against us yet. There's not a definite win. Yeah, and people have said, I've had conversations with people, and they say, oh, you know, what about if they roll the tanks down the street, you know, or you know, sort of drag you out of your homes with police, you know, and that has not the tanks, but the police, you know, have attempted to drag people out and jail people for maybe posting a comment on Facebook, which is I nearly swore then, which is absolutely ridiculous. But the thing is that, you know, if the authorities wanted to really go the whole hog, as in, you know, tanks and dragging people out of their homes, you just think of how many millions of people there are in this country, and how few police and authoritarians to do that, and they'd have to do it all in one go. You know, they couldn't just pick one at a time, because there would be, you know, you go into a street where there's maybe 150 homes to go after one person. You've got 149 homes worth watching, and you know, they're bound to be people that come out and you know, will protect those you know, people in the street, which will then need more resources to, you know, to push those back. Which, you know, to me, if they wanted to do it en masse, there would be a problem. You know, tackling it in small ways, you know, is probably working for the moment. But you know, at the end of the day, you know, what they are doing is very corrupt. You know, the court systems, the police are not really educated in proper law. I mean, they're running on acts and statutes, which are
purposely so. That's purposely so, because I know a lot of lads who are in the police, and they don't know the law. They know what to quote, but the law doesn't actually apply unless we're talking commerce in most things. Unless it's harm or loss, as you said. If I punch somebody, damaged the property, stolen something, but if I called them a name, it's a completely different jurisdiction what we're talking about.
Yeah, it is. Well, you have to have a victim to commit a crime, don't you? I mean, if you, like, all right, speed, you may have hurt somebody if you go over a speed limit, but you know, where is the victim at that point? And acts and statutes, like listening to the authorities, is really by consent, isn't it? You know, acts and statutes. Who said that we have to do this and have to do that? Well, people say, well, you voted for the government. Well, I didn't vote for them. You know, I voted.
But it's what we were taught, Nick. You know, your mum and dad taught you to act like this. You're over 16 now. You become a mister. So when you're doing this and writing to these, you're Mr. Kitchen. You know, that's how you're being taught to act. Now, if you act as a debtor, they're doing nothing wrong by accepting you acting as a debtor.
Yeah.
So when they come round to your house, because you've registered it as a mister, so they have possible or probable cause to presume it's a commercial property.
Yeah.
And that's why the council tax applies. That's why they can enter your property to change meters and things like that, because it's not private. And I understand these people. I've seen a video today where a fella's trying to stop the police helping people go in to remove the meters that he's had fitted. And he's saying this is a private property. If that was the case, they wouldn't be there, because I've seen how this works. I saw it 15 years ago with a friend of mine who was a social worker, retired, and she used to help families. And on the Friday, social services took 3 kids. On the Monday, they brought the middle kid back, because the middle kid was the one who wasn't registered. So that property was not owned by them. So they had to bring that property back. Otherwise, they'd have been in a different jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And when you see them acting that way, I spoke with a lad who, one of the people who watch the podcast normally, John T. Pipes. John T. Piper, he came round earlier and we were talking about this, about the jurisdictions. It's so simple. It's all based on presumption. And if you don't rebut it, the judge will just stand under it and do what they want. As Alex will tell you, Alex went round 5 years ago. They were giving notice to all the local to all the constabularies about committing treason, about helping private bailiffs and stuff like that to put the police on notice. And we needed the numbers then. You know, if you'd have turned up with 3,000 people at each constabulary saying the same thing, not kicking off, but just saying the same thing, we'd have seen movement. But when I turn up at court on my own against a company that's, you know, earned £3.4 billion profit, and the judge is on their side, and you're on your own, and Alex turns up at a police station and puts the chief constable on notice, and the fellow behind the desk is just looking at him and going, "What are you doing?" But if 3,000 people turned up and did that, that'd be totally different.
It would, wouldn't it? You see these companies, because that's what they are. The police, councils, courts, even the MPs, aren't they? The government, corporations, and just remembering what an associate, or friend actually, not associate, he was saying about repossession going on in Northampton, and he was attending there, and a van load of Marston's crew turned up in a hire van. What was it? Can't remember the name, but it's a common company for hire, and a load of police turned up and they clamped this car, and 2 police officers stood by the clamp, so the people couldn't take it off. They said, if you try to touch it and you harm their property, they'll nick you and that. Now, they shouldn't really be standing in. This is a civil matter between the company and an issue, and the person whose car it was. But it was later found out that Marsden's were started by a linked to a banking family. I'm not going to mention their name, but a very famous banking family apparently started Marston's up, and Marston's had shares in the Northamptonshire police that attended. So nearly swore again. How the hell can that happen? All right, okay. So anybody can have shares in anybody, in any company, but does it make you wonder why the police are standing by and protecting property of a company that has shares in them? I can't get over that, but we're seeing corporatism over sort of corporate police officers exercising corporate matters for other corporations, where it should be constables protecting people's rights and people's property. They should be sort of under the consent of the public to protect them, and they're not doing it. So something is certainly wrong. We see in court situations with council tax and various things that are going on, that there is fraud. I know you spoke about this, Paul, haven't you? That there is some serious wrongdoings. Now, I'm going to say, and I think this is probably everybody's hope, that things will come on top for them. There's been two too many years of lying and committing, fraud and, nefarious things against the people. We as people have got to expose this, and we've got to stand against it. And I'm not promoting violence or anything like that, but there is just, if there is enough of us that just really say, look, now, no, bugger off. Basically, we're not having this, and doing things around that to get things done, really, to show, like as you said, if we had 3,000 people, we can do a great deal. For us in the community assemblies, we have a membership of over 5,000, but we are linked to, I think it's 12 other organisations now, and we're worldwide as well. There are things going on in the background. There's things I can't really discuss quite now here, but over the before the a certain period and a certain time that came in 5 years ago, the community assemblies were started up, and it got to a point where they became very big, but then they were hit quite badly, and organisations wanted to take them out because they were getting pretty strong. Now, an assembly, to create an assembly, is an ancient right for us. This is something that we can do, and it has authority. It has a authority in the scheme of things as an assembly brings a consensus of the people, and this is why we form assembly to basically get the consensus of the public as an ancient right, which goes back. Well, it actually goes back to the Roman times, but if we took it on these shores, we could look back at Anglo-Saxon times where we had assemblies of the people, which then created the Wittens, which then were able to ask the king for things to come back to the people. This is we have a government and a council and people, so we have a very, very similar system, but they've turned it on its head, that the government are over the people, even though we give the government authority by voting, which means is then, well, if we give them the authority, then surely we should be the people that they listen to, not we're listening to them. So
that's why I thought with the assemblies it was different, because I remember saying this to you when I first met you, that having an assembly, it was the same as what Carl was doing with the People's Thingy Council, the PSC. I can't remember what the S stands for.
People's Shadow Council, yeah.
Shadow Council, because when I understood that the Shadow Cabinet, which at the moment would be the Tories, well, they've got their manifesto that runs alongside the Labour, and they've got their budget, and this is what they would have spent their money on. So when they come to the budget and they say, well, we've done this on such a subject, and you've done this on that subject, and we've saved more money, you've spent more. So that, for me, when the People's Shadow Council, if they were taking the budget that the council had, and they were looking at the services that need to be distributed, then they have their own books and their own accounts to say, hang on a minute, you've spent this much money on that, when we would have only spent this and we would have had this outcome. So you have a standing to actually combat these people on. Whereas if you go as a councillor, you're going in a different format. It's the same as a protest. If you assemble and say no, that is a rejection. If you protest and say no, it's still legal acceptance.
Yeah.
It's like all the farmers now, they've registered to do this protest on Tuesday. The police are going to clear the way for them. They're all complying with a registration. This is a legal protest.
Yeah.
And, the farmers, have, The French farmers certainly don't go and register and do that. Where do you register to spray crap all over the town hall? You don't register for that, do you?
Yeah.
So we're far too polite in this country. I remember one of my best mates who's from Northern Ireland. Does the court system a lot. And I've been in court with him, and he's never been disrespectful. He's never shouted, never raised his voice, never sworn. But he just tells them, no, you're not doing that. This is where I'm standing. No, you're not going over there. This is where I'm standing.
Yeah.
And it was like, he said, you're too polite. He said, you English people, you go into these courts and you're going, oh, yes, sir, please, sir, thank you, sir. You don't have to go in and shout at them. You just have to go in and know what you're doing and say, no, we're not doing that. We're not going down there. And I've seen it so many times when people don't actually know the direction they want to go in, but they've got a generalisation. It gives them the chance to drag you into the long grass. And if they drag you into the long grass, that's where they want you, because now if you're in the long grass, you're arguing something that they're not standing under, and they'll leave you there and just laugh at you. And it's the same when it comes to a protest for me. I remember Rob Menard, a Canadian guy who was doing a lot of law stuff 10, 15 years ago. He just did a simple video. He said, protest is a legal acceptance. He says, look at your children. He says, when it's bedtime, they tantrum and they paddy and they stamp their feet, and they have the right to do that. But where do they end up? In bed. And it's the same protest. With an assembly, you can't stop people assembling, but if you say we're protesting, well, all of a sudden that comes under a legal banner.
Yeah, they look at it different. This you can have stand in the parks being voiceful and waving banners, and that's good. It's good visual. Some great things have come from stand in the parks, and no doubt protests have produced some very, very good things, but how it's looked at is just enthusiastic individuals.
I think you could gauge it. You could gauge a protest. If you've got a lot of people turn up for a protest, you've got a lot of people that would have turned up for an assembly.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have had the restrictions. And it's us understanding these restrictions, because if you assemble and try and do the same thing, what do the police do then? Do they just come wading in, start battening people, start arresting people, pulling people out and arresting the odd ones who they think that it's easy to do? We've seen all this. We've seen the kettling of people. It's those numbers, and it's how we can organise it. That's why the assembly is what you're talking about. It's not you trying to go around the entire country to get people to assemble. You're trying to get people from those parts to come and listen to what's going on with the other, because I want you to bring the other entities that are working with you on this in as well, because everybody has got a piece of this puzzle. Alex talks about the jigsaw pieces every week, and we've all got at least one piece to this puzzle.
And this is a thing. This is important. The jigsaw. It means very little when there's just one piece on your table, and you start putting things together, and only when you start bringing the pieces together, you get a picture of something that you can recognize that has a strength or a power for you. Going back to protests, if these were assemblies, certainly in the period of when there was inviting you to stay in your homes, or was it offer? I can't remember. Well, I never did, but under rules of assembly, you could go from one assembly to another. And this is why it's important. We have the Community Assembly of the British Isles. It's a British Isles organisation, but it consists of many assemblies in towns. And, here in Lincolnshire, we have Lincoln, Long Sutton, where I am, Louth, Mablethorpe, Grantham, Thedlethorpe, Gainsborough, I think, is very, very close to being an assembly. And we'll possibly have Spalding very, very shortly when my friends come back from Australia. And, you know, if you had, like many villages as they are, just a few miles apart from each other, if they was all part of the assemblies, you could go from one village to another with unrestricted travel. Now, we should have unrestricted travel anyway in any situation. I mean, we do have rights. Thing is that we may get sidetracked on who is giving us our rights, and I would say our rights come from the divine, God, the source, creator, or whoever you would like to call him or her these days. When we were born, we weren't born into slavery. All right, okay, you could argue, well, we've got a slave certificate under the birth certificate. Yeah, all right, okay, if you believe that. Yes, we have got a birth certificate. Yes, it has numbers. Yes, it has, in some forms, capital letters, various things that they write to you in some form. But the thing is, don't give it power. You're born free. You're not talking about freemen of the land, but you came from your mother and father, or you was created under God, and you were born on the land free, and you should be able to live your life free. Now, if anybody,
I was just going to say, we're taught that we are free.
Yeah.
This is life. You've got to get a job. You've got to pay these bills because you want to buy a house, because you want to have a car, because you want to get married, because you want to have children. And the question that I asked as a 7-year-old was, why? And my mum said, that's life. So if I'm born into a world where I'm told I'm free, but I can only be free within all this, well, that's no different to putting a horse in a field and the horse thinking, look how free I am. I can go anywhere in this field. And then you put another horse in there that's never been in a field, and the other horse is saying, yeah, but there's a big world out there. It's not just in the... Yeah. But sometimes he opens that gate and he lets me go into that field, and I can go and do whatever I want in that field. And that's what we've got. We've got a farm, and we've been born into this farm system, and we're told that this is what we must do. And if we do that, we'll get rewarded. I mean, there's a debate going on about the surname over the birth certificate. The way I looked at it was, I was given a monopoly piece, but my monopoly piece keeps getting used in all this commerce. I'm going, well, I've not used it though. What's that going to do with me? And it's taking control of that. Now, the only way I can see us taking control of that piece is to being recognised as a man, as being a live man. And if you're recognised as a man, this is what the constitutional law stuff would have done. Because if I'd got to be recognised as a man, and then the Mr. Paul Webster is a person that is attached to the man via either a national insurance number, a birth certificate, whichever we want, that is my monopoly piece. Well, here's my monopoly piece. Who's got a bigger claim to this? Me.
Yeah.
Well, nobody has. Okay. Well, where have I used that in that commerce, in that commercial situation? You've not got a TV license. Well, I don't own a public place. I don't put the telly on and earn profit from you watching the television. So I don't need a license. That's the difference. It's a private property. But then again, we would have registered the private property in private jurisdiction as the man or the woman and not as the Mr., Miss, Mrs., which gives them this scope to pretend, well, that property is commercial. And when you say, well, it's not, they just say, well, it can be. At this moment in time, it's possibly capable of. And that's how they are attaching this. So slack, so loose, because they're that used to people not challenging. Now, I said to you 8 years ago when I was in court with that gyro, knowing it was a remedy, all I needed was other people to get that gyro when they issued them all the time back then, and go to court and summons their agent and say, this is what I wish to do with my bill, acting as creditor. You've issued me with this, I've endorsed it, now do your job, which is zero my bill, set the bill off. If we'd have done that 8 years ago, who knows what we could have changed? Because that, for me, paying bills that you've already paid for, that was devastating to me. On top of that, banks don't lend money. On top of that, a commercial property tax is being applied to every property in this land. And that's all fraud. But it's only fraud once you've pointed it out and they carry it on. If you're oblivious to it, they're not committing fraud because you're acting as if you're a debtor and they're only collecting off you as as a revenue collector, collecting money on behalf of the taxpayer from debtors. So it's what we've been taught. So if I took control of that monopoly piece because I'm recognised as a man, this system then stops. It's all based on presumption. And once you took control and now here I am, I'm a man, and everybody knows it, they're not just laughing at you because you've stood in the commercial court and gone, I'm a man. You know, it's totally different. I could theorise that worked, but that's what I wanted 8 years ago. Now, people say, well, you know, give us the gyro. What can we do? Well, take them to court and sue them. Oh, I can't do that. Then don't do that. But don't keep crying about it. If you find this stuff out and you still don't want to do anything because of whatever reasons, nobody's forcing you to. I just knew that where I was, I needed to understand what they were trying to do. Once I understood it and I could hit it back, then they had to commit fraud, and they were more than willing to do that because I was on my own. We were talking about if you're going on your own on these people on any level, then it's a nothing thing. But if you've got 200, 2,000 people all doing the same thing, all going into the same court, not all in the same hearing, all in separate hearings, you lock that system up, all of a sudden the spotlight is on it and people want to know.
Absolutely. And, you know, going back to the, you know, to the name, I mean, all right, there's a few arguments surrounding this. And my parents gave me my first and second name, and I carry the family name, you know, which is what my father was called and what my grandfather was called. And I'm proud of that. Now, I don't write it in a way that it appears on my driving license or on my bank statement, and you know, it's written in a certain way. So, you know, there has to be a separation there. You know, if there are making money off your name, that's, you know, probably attached to a certificate, or they're besmirching it in any way, we should then represent it and really stop the buggers, really, to be honest. You know, I know there is people that are not using their family name and just using their, you know, their first name and middle name. Well, of course, that's up to them. I'm not here to say that that's right or wrong, because it's certainly right for them if that's what they're doing. But there is definitely things afoot, things that are, you know, are not right. I mean, you look at the, you know, the how they use the capital, you know, all caps name. You go and search what it is in Latin. It's capicio, dimitio. And there's minima, media, and maxima. And maxima is denoted in Latin as a full slave. So yeah, all right, that's you know, certainly has links there. But the thing is that, are you representing capital names? You know, you are you. If you think you're a slave, or you think that you are an all caps entity, then that's what you will be. You know, and this goes back to this registration of protest, that you have a system there that is authoritarian, but it's only authoritarian because we believe it to be so, and we give it energy, and it takes energy from us because it will try to beat us if we try to turn our backs on it. And we can't do it individually. We have to do it, en masse in a certain way. The more energy we take away from the system, the quicker it will crumble and wither and die. If it can't, like a bully, I suppose, if you are frightened of it and you believe that he's going to beat you up, then you'll be frightened all your life, and he'll be bullying you all your life. But we need to learn, and we need to harden up, and we need to look at ways that we take the power back from them, take the energy. Take the energy away from them. I'm not talking in terms of overthrowing a government, because if you look at natural law, causing no harm and no loss. You go and oust the government or take it down, you will also be causing harm and loss to those who benefit from it, that actually believe in it. So probably it's best to discover who you are and who they are, turn away from it best way that you can, en masse, and allow it to crumble by itself. I know it may sound, there might be people out there to say, oh, we've got to do this and we've got to do that, but we've also got to be realistic that if we take to the streets and start causing violence and burning things, that they'll have the army and things on the street.
It's what they've prepared for. Yeah. That's why they're pouring everybody into that position. What day are we on? Last week, there was a video where the police were red keying a door because of refusal of smart meters. Now, that legislation's in the energy bill.
Yeah.
They weren't going to use it. They weren't using it. But now, we've already seen a precedent where police all ballied up are red keying doors so you can fit a smart meter. Now, they're red keying shops, they're red keying commercial property, because that's the only way that legislation applies.
Yeah.
And it's all based on keep your fingers crossed and they don't know what we're talking about. So when they're doing this now, because, a lot of these people can see there's something majorly wrong, but as you said, it's the last 4 or 5 years. And I've seen people in the last 3 years using stuff that didn't work 10 years ago. And they're trying to use it now. And you're like, that doesn't work. Stop it. The amount of people who say, well, I've no contract. Just tell them you've no contract. It doesn't matter. Nobody has a contract. When you open a shop, you don't have a contract with the council to pay your rates. You don't have these things. But if you want to shop in the town, the council said, well, you've got to pay business rates. No, I'm not paying them. Well, you're not having a shop. Yeah, I am. It's my, but you're not running the shop in our town because the taxpayers decide. So in one sense, the council work for us, but in the other sense, they have us working for them. We are their cash cow. We're their employees. When it's got to be the opposite. Look at the 650 employees we put in Parliament. They're meant to work for us. There isn't one piece of legislation, not one act that is passed that isn't beneficial for man.
Yeah.
Not one, because every act and statute must be beneficial for a man. However, when you give it over to the executive from the MPs, when it goes to the executive, to the government, they hand in regulations. Well, what is regulated? Commerce. So, if you do this on such a day, you pay this. And that applies to all commerce. Mr. Webster, this is what you've got to pay as a shopkeeper. Oh, right. Yeah, and we don't understand it. We think that this is English language and it applies to us. When we're talking all capitals, we're talking dog Latin, we're talking absolute gibberish.
Mm.
These people live in gibberish world, and all their pieces of paper are all gibberish. Yet these pieces of paper are putting real men and women in jail, or even forced to take their own lives.
And this is where, you know, this is where the corruption certainly is. I mean, it should never happen. You know, police red keying doors so we can have smart meters. I mean, you know, where is our choice? I mean, I know friend of mine, she had a smart meter fitted, and you know, she didn't want it, so we had her writing off, you know, tackling about health issues, and she has got health issues which this smart meter does affect. Now, we did get them in a corner, which basically they did say that they will remove it. Sorry, no, we asked them to remove it, and they said, well, we haven't got any meters to replace it with. You know, they don't make them anymore. Obviously, we know where we can get meters, and said to them, well, why don't you come and replace it then? You know, we'll pay your engineers. And they wouldn't do it. And they eventually sent a letter to say, well, you get a private engineer and fit it, and then you can register it. Now, I've yet to have a conversation with her to see how that was happening, because we did struggle to find an engineer that would actually do it, because some of the local ones were saying, well, that's illegal. No, it's not illegal. It's not illegal to put your own meter in. But you know, this is just what some of these electricians are like and believe. And you know, it's true for them. That's, you know, I'm not knocking what they're doing or what they're believing. I don't knock people's beliefs. I might laugh at them sometimes. I'm joking, but it's, I don't know, the red keying doors to put smart meters in. I mean, if this is happening on a grand scale, you know, knowing what conditions are behind this. I mean, you know, is this, you know, somebody who basically hadn't paid a bill for a long time? I mean, there might be a mechanism why they think they can do it, but you know, it's just
it's simpler, Nick. It's simpler. The energy bill is from government, right? So you cannot attack an agent like E.ON, Scottish Power, British Gas for fitting a smart meter, for getting a warrant. You can't attack the agent because it's government policy. They're following government policy. So if we take the agents to court, there's no point to that.
That's it. How are the warrants coming about, though? Because they'd have to be signed by a judge. And
they're being bundled, because this has just happened with us. They're being bundled like liability orders by the council, and they're being put into a private room to be rubber stamped under commerce. So when you put a warrant in and you're claiming a forced entry warrant under the 1954 Gas Act, which is a health and safety thing, well, when that warrant goes in, if it's a specific warrant for a private residence, it has to be put in under the Gas Act, and then it has to have a reason as to why. They have to have a reason. They can't just say we want a warrant under that act. But if it's for commerce, they can do it for a health and safety check. So they don't need to write a reason. It's a health and safety check. They're refusing us to see the meters. There might be a gas leak. There might be this going on. There could be anything. They'll get a warrant. They'll get a warrant like that, especially for a shop. And if you've refused to pay, then the shop will be put up for sale. All kinds of things that is available to them.
They have mechanism, and certainly, you know,
to private people, but we don't act private. So again, they're doing nothing wrong. We've got to understand there's a big part of this that we're to blame for. We can't keep pointing at everybody. We've got to look at us.
Absolutely. I mean, in response to the health and safety part, that you could have gas checks and they can't do the 1954 Gas Act on electric. Is only gas meters, isn't it?
The electric, they can claim abstraction or tampering and things like that. And if you refuse entry for them to look at it,
yeah.
then you can.
But if
that would be a proper warrant. If they, if like I know has happened, if somebody's being accused of tampering with their electric meter, that is being accused of abstraction, which is criminal. So you're defrauding the taxpayer by using their electric that's paid for free, and you're using it again because they're classing you as a shop. This is the technicalities what we're on. Oh, hey, hang on a minute. We've done nearly
I decided to wait a moment right now. Well, actually, 50 minutes, because I thought, well, when I weighed in, I want to say something meaningful, right? So I think we're getting a little bit into the technicalities in a way where we could be losing, or should we say not seeing the wood for the trees. Because thinking about community assemblies, and this is a problem with the truth movement full stop, and I'll just explain a little detail about why we didn't need to get there in a minute. But if you just look simply at life is probably an aggregate of many things. But let's just say we said it was initially an aggregate of problems and opportunities. The truth movement, unfortunately, because of the oppression that we're under, which is planned, have become so focused on problems and problem solving that it has derailed us, because what it's done, it's like an act of hypnosis. It's focused us on problems so that our belief now is that every action that we engage in is merely to correct problems. But actually, we have a massive life outside of all the problems we face individually and collectively. We have the flip side of that, which is we have all these opportunities and all these possibilities. Now, when I first had contact with community assemblies at the end of 2020, when they were just starting up, as the COVID thing was, really kicking in, we'd done the police serves, it was really clear that I was in the early stages and the blueprint was very important. But even then, I could see that a lot of the uptake from people was all based upon, on the back of COVID, people were trying to come together in organised action to resist the problems that these corrupt oligarchs were producing. Now, the point I'm making here is we shouldn't be doing community assemblies just because a bunch of corrupt oligarchs have created a bunch of problems for us that we have to solve by using the community assemblies. Humans should always have had these types of structures, which have been undermined for a number of reasons, not just because we've got oligarchs in a position of power abusing it and protecting their own interests. So if we pitch in with people or bait the hook merely as if, or we play to the concerns and fears and worries they've got about the state of the world, then it's like what Newton said in his equations: every force F has an equal and opposite force minus F, which acts back upon it. It's the same in like Taoist thought as well. Resistance breeds resistance. So the energy that you see something with will come back at you. And I think it was Buckminster Fuller that said, instead of attacking the old models and the old system, seek to build an alternative model to replace it. In other words, don't tackle that system head on, because it will always try to squash you. Make that system irrelevant. And the way I would back this up specifically is whether you took Christian tradition or Platonic tradition, connected to things like problems and solutions. Remember, Ike talks about problem, reaction, solution. That is related to a correct understanding of facts and a very clinical and logical understanding of truth, where everything that's true means everything else is false. It's very binary. But Jesus said in John 14:6, I am the way, the truth, and the life. He didn't just say, I'm the truth. There's a way, there's a life. He talks about abundant life in John 10:10. I've come that they might have life and have it more abundantly. But because of our problem focus, we've got bogged down into just the narrowness of truth, fact, correction of errors in truth and fact. Plato was the same. The classical pillars of Western civilization involved truth, beauty, and goodness, or if you like, philosophy, aesthetics, and ethics. And again, we focus, as part of these three very important pillars, we focus more than anything on truth, then goodness, and only finally on aesthetics and beauty. But, you know, there's a reason we get up in the morning. The reason that we want to live is to also have beautiful experiences, fulfilling experiences, not to have life full of problems. So the reason we meet together, I think, in community assemblies isn't just to solve a problem that a bunch of elites are giving to all of us. It's because the very structure of human experience should be community orientated, with everybody basically stepping up to the plate, taking their fair share of responsibility. That is not dissimilar, even on a secular model, to Jesus' vision of the kingdom of God, which is all, okay, technically, not in political terms, it's a theocracy, but under a benevolent Heavenly Father, and we're all these children. So even if you secularize that and take God out of the equation, there's a model of community, love one another, love thy neighbor, all that stuff would exist, even without the official Christian message. So I think the reality of community and why we're showing up, we should be showing up because as humans, we want to show up. And if we get too technical on the problems, while they are factually accurate and important to bear in mind, they shouldn't be the sole focus, because it won't lead us to the solutions. The solutions is when we come together and do the things that we want to do, build the communities we want to build, and make the current system irrelevant.
Absolutely. I'll go along with that. And yeah, I think, yeah, definitely right there, Alex. This is the thing. I mean, community is well, I mean, if you look back, you know, when things were much more peaceful, certainly when I grew up as a child, in my village, community spirit was great. You know, people helped each other, people looked after each other, and this is one of the things that we are looking to do back with the community assembly. You know, this is not an organization that creates a hierarchy, or, you know, sort of is not listening to people, because everything is run locally. I'm a founding facilitator for Lincolnshire. I'm not over and above any of the people in the local assemblies, because the members are the ones that are first and foremost, not the facilitators, not the founder of the whole organization. And you said, you know, that you were in the assemblies back in 2020, and I know things have changed since then, because there was you know, a lot of things that went on. The assemblies were, you know, attacked very, very hard, and nearly wiped out, to be honest. I think they left about 4 assemblies out of 150. And, you know, there were some direct attacks and you know, mechanisms where assembly members were pulled away to do certain things. You know, come over here and come and do this. This is, you know, this is a better way, blah, blah, blah. And yeah, it since then has restructured into something that is a different model. It's not so I'm going to, rather than a model, it's a framework for people really to come together, and, you know, each assembly decides, you know, the members in the assembly decide what they want to do. It's not any, you know, sort of facilitators, or, you know, up to the regional or up to the national part. So and there is some people that are focused on you know, going and looking at certain routes. Of course, well, that's you know, entirely up to them. But you're going back to Buckminster Fuller, which is a quote, one of the quotes that's on our website. You know, you make these systems irrelevant, you build an alternative. And are making headway in the alternative or parallel society, you know, with its own health initiative. So, you know, sort of if I could look to Cornwall, that they've pretty much got everything health-wise, other than surgeons. You know, dentists, doctors, homeopathic, you know, sort of healers and practitioners, and supplies of health, unmessed about blood supplies. They've got a lot of things in place, and we're looking to, you know, to do this across the country. Food security, very, very important. I should be having a conversation and going and visiting a farm next week, not far from me, hoping to bring them on board so the community have the ability to deal direct, and you know, to start to cut out some of the corporate things. We have our own court system, which is based on Court Ounder. I won't go into too much detail, but it carries with it its own peace constable service, you know, highly trained people that are appointed by the court of the people. You know, this is a very, very powerful process. Now, you know, some may laugh, oh well, you know, the police are the highest, or you know, the system courts are, you know, higher than the people. Well, you know, that's a belief. You know, when going back to when you were born, you know, sort of under the Creator. You can look through the Bible, and I think it's Genesis 1:28. You know, that you have dominion over everything that swimmeth and creepeth. So, really, first and foremost, the people that are born to this land are first and foremost, and everything else, administration, corporations, systems that come after that are lower than the people. And we have to take ownership and realize this, that it will break us free. You know, we need to get together on this. You know, assemblies is one way. You know, there's many different assemblies in this country. The community assemblies of the British Isles is by far the biggest, but you know, this is, you know, I'm not saying, well, you know, go for the biggest or the one that was there first, but you know, you whatever way you come together has to be right for you. You know, as a man or as a woman, it has to resonate. It has to do the things that you want to do. If you want to just I don't know, learn about gardening and grow vegetables, well, join a group that does that. If you want to learn about law, join a group that does that. If you want to do more things and you want to do expansive things, and bond and come together with like-minded people, I would say go and seek out groups, and you know, seek out the Community Assembly of the British Isles, seek out other groups that are doing things. You know, what feels right for you, but for God's sake, just come together. Really, is the just we can't fight. Well, say fight. We can't necessarily resist strongly on as individuals and spread out over different fronts. Sometimes we have to come together and focus. And you know, if you go through the history of the British Isles, you know, you take, I don't know, Viking raids, where they go and raid up and down the country, and each village will, you know, sort of brace themselves to fend off an attack. But you know, where that is a community, but when it joins with other villages, starts to make an army to fend off and resist an attack, then it becomes a bit more meaningful. Now, whether they get beat or they beat off the attack, at least you've had a coming together, and you know, people have tried. What I think we've seen over the last 5 years is a very great coming together. You know, people have, well, using the term woke up, awakened, realized, you know, what's going on, started to form, come together and do things meaningful. But maybe in the last couple of years, whether you've seen it, both of you and people out there, there is a lot of apathy going around at the moment. People that probably were enthusiastic a couple of years ago, that, you know, they've sort of dropped off the radar. And unfortunately, it seems to be rife through, excuse me, seems to be rife through the truth community that I don't know, it's almost as if people have just, you know, sat on their arse at the moment, for whatever reasons. You know, you know, all right, we resistance, you do get tired of it sometimes. You've been around for 5 years, you know, doing things. You may get to a point where you think, well, what's it all worth? You know, is it worth doing, worth carrying on? Or you may just get tired of it. But if you are together with others in a community or in a group, you know, you have others that will be able to pick you up and carry you through this. So this is another thing why, you know, community is important. This physical grouping of people, you know, a semblance of people coming together on a spiritual sense and, you know, on a physical sense. And this is what I've found. I've been in the assemblies a bit more than 2.5 years, and it has taught me a lot. It has taught me a lot. You know, there has been a lot of lies, and there has been a lot of truths that have come out in this 5 years or so through one organization and another, or, you know, through the general public and the system. And batting through that, you know, it can make you a little bit tired, but you know, we've just got to keep going. We've got to, you know, find the best ways forward, really. And you know, just, I say keep up the fight, but, you know, fighting for freedom when freedom is already ours and should be ours. Well, you know, if you are fighting for it, it seems a bit of an oxymoron, really, doesn't it?
Could I ask you a question, Nick, at this point? This might seem really left field, right? You probably won't be expecting this question.
Okay.
But are the assemblies currently looking at ways to maximize efficiency by using AI?
That would be up to the individual. This is not so when you say assemblies, so assemblies is not a governing body. It's, you know, assembly is just there as a framework. So it's up to each and every member in their local assemblies whether they choose to you know, sort of engage with that AI or not. Now, it's not something that I've engaged with, but I know other people certainly have. You know, you can see probably AI as bad, but there may be some good uses for it. So as an organization, there is no hierarchy, or, you know, as an organization, we're not, you know, sort of saying that anybody should be engaging with it or not. That is completely up to the individual. That is a little bit left field. Yeah.
No. I like it, but it was a segue into a point that I want to make, because when we look at collective power compared to individual power, it's much greater. but it's very, very difficult for people to consistently, like I've been in groups so many times, motivation starts off good. It's very, very difficult. Like even with parish council meetings that you see in obscure locations, you tend to get lots of stalwarts who are like 87 years old and have been doing it since they were about 6, because it was all part of the family. And then you've got 2 or 3 people in the same family. Very difficult to keep these structures going. But what's interesting about AI, when I talked about Plato, truth, beauty, and goodness, the beauty bit is all like that right brain creative stuff, use of creative imagination, rather than philosophical and logical ideas to solve problems. The great thing about AI, when people get past the natural fear that they've got because they think it's going to be Terminator, Skywatch, what's it called now? Skynet. It's going to become conscious. It isn't. That's just mythology. But the great thing about AI, and you can see it in the last 12 months, what you can do now, if you're creative, like there used to be a statement in the 1980s when I was studying computer programming, and it was GIGO, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah.
So all that happens with AI is if you give it intelligent material, it's an incredible tool that is a servant of that person. So only the creative people with really creative game-changing ideas are going to make progress. The sterile psychopaths and the idiots who have nothing to offer, they won't be able to mobilize it. So, for example, so let's just say I saw my friend, and I'll get back to Webby's point now, down in Bournemouth, and I was there last week. And he explained to me, he tinkered last year. I was down about 12 months ago, and he tinkered with AI with still images. And he just said, oh, give me some keywords. And I actually chucked in keywords for 2 different pictures that I thought, hey, if they work, I can use them as a book cover. And I've got them turned into a book cover for my 2 major books. But what he said when I saw him the other week, roughly a year later, he said, you wouldn't believe what's happened in that last year. Because now what they can do with movies, we're not that far away from, if I could turn my first book into a set of command prompts, you can create unbelievable AI videos without needing Hollywood actors, all that corrupt lot, all the control that they've had, just like publishers decided what would and wouldn't make it. You've got this bottleneck at the top. And they're not creative people, they're marketers who see an opportunity to sell things to the brainwashed. All creativity is taken out of it. You see it in manufactured boy bands. It's all to sell to teenies who will buy lots of records. And I'm not saying there's no quality in it, but it's impoverished. But what you see now, he said, in the last 12 months, compared to what it was 12 months ago, AI video generation was very clunky, very poor in standard. Now the level of it has gone through the roof. It's going to get faster. So I could, in theory, take my first book, and with the right skills, I could create a Hollywood movie out of it with AI characters, needing no actors that needed to be paid. Now, some people will rail against this and say it's killing true creativity. I don't believe it is. There's a downside, but there's a definite positive side. So the reason I asked the question was to say that if we've got a bunch of smart, creative people with a strong creative imagination, for example, we could create movies from fairly simple ideas that are really powerful, get them out on YouTube, right? You could even monetize them. But if your creative thoughts and the stories you could tell were epic and revolutionary, people would watch them. They wouldn't watch Hollywood movies. You wouldn't have all that corruption at the top. So I'm just hinting at the possibilities that individuals have that are the fingertips that they didn't realize if they get creative, because this as an assistant can facilitate really powerful media that it would be very, very difficult for the oligarchs to shut down. If you created a fantasy epic with really powerful motifs that was very gripping, you got it out there, you could get a following. I think people who've got ideas and creative ideas will be able to have a competitive advantage, and that includes us, because life is not just problems, it's opportunities.
This is it. And I think there was a message just come up on the screen that it would probably get blocked, and probably so. But what about if it was a comic strip? It probably might get through. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I agree. I totally agree, Alex. I think that there is a lot of creative people out there that could put their talents into doing those certain things. So when I run a couple of three Telegram channels and a couple of Facebook channels, mainly for the assemblies, but there is a chat group that I run, and I had to recently put a block on the media part of it. Now, this was because there was a lot of stuff coming in. I say fear porn, that I don't like censorship. Don't get me wrong, but there comes a point where you go on some of these Telegram channels and things, and there's just all sorts of manner of stuff, which I don't really think is going to do anybody a lot of good. But if you had something like you was talking about, Alex, about something that's creative, that could help people think, that maybe in a way of solution orientated, that you would have certainly something there, that our minds are being bombarded day by day by information, and as Paul said, stuff that didn't work 5 years ago. And this is something that we have highlighted through our core team and our alliance in the assemblies about not doing the same old things. This is why we like to align with other groups. Now, some a group or individuals or an organization is doing something and it works, then really all of us should know about this and to to follow that, not go after the things that don't work and end up in the same place as they did 5 years ago and wasting all of our energy. This has nothing to do, I've come off the point of the AI there, but going back to creative solutions, putting them in a format of clips and movies, I think it would be great. And that's something that I will certainly take back to our core team and our committee. Not that we have anybody who's as maybe talented enough, or we may have, but not that I know. It'd be nice if we had somebody that could do that. It'd be great, but there's just too much. There's too much white noise out there. Too much Ross white noise stuff that basically is messing with their mind, taking us there, not allowing us to, probably, keep our eyes front and keep our eyes on the prize. And I believe that in some part is engineered, but then, people being people have took that up and, made it into a monster as well, that will go on to not allow us to produce the results of things that we probably should be doing. But you can't scold people for doing what they feel is right. That's they have to learn, and if they feel they're doing something right about sharing this and sharing that and sharing this and getting us to sign petitions and whatever, that's fine. Hopefully they, as time goes on, they will see that maybe some of the things they're doing are maybe not beneficial, but we have to respect that people are coming at this from many different levels. So the period of 5 years ago when people started meeting in the parks, and I've seen it with the various conversations that one small huddle will be talking about something, another will be talking about something that that can't be joined up with another. People are coming at things at different different levels of awakening, even though in the sphere of you know, us being in this awakened period. But you know, it'll all come right. It will all come right.
Can I chip in here again, Nick?
Of course.
Because just to take an example from storytelling that might be useful for you to take back to the committee. In storytelling, one of the big emphases in good storytelling is the phrase, show, don't tell. And what you're talking about, a lot of the problems is when we tell people, we've all got ideas and we all think our ideas are better than everybody else's, because otherwise we wouldn't say anything. That's just a fact. Now, the problem with that is you get a cacophony of voices that become noises, like white noise, like you're talking about, because you can't differentiate them. With all these people with some of them good ideas, some of them terrible ideas, all competing in a marketplace of ideas and then just drowning each other out. And I think that that's a big part of it. Now, we sure don't tell. If I give an example of from when I was in work, we set up, it was vocational rehabilitation for people with severe and enduring mental health problems. And I got this guy who had graphic design skills on board. We got him a 4-hour-a-week permitted worktop up, and he started to design a monthly magazine. And I oversaw it, and he used his creative abilities. And in the middle, we had a spotlight on the employer. So an employer could spotlight themselves as a business, as well as the service that they were providing to us in giving work experience placements to people as part of a total kind of rehab program for people who haven't been in work for a long time. Now, when I tried to get this funding, I managed to succeed because he was somebody on my books. But what had to happen was I had an idea that if we produced this full colour newsletter, it'd be a great thing, but there'd be a cost implication. Now, I could have gone to my line manager with an idea and said to her in her line management with her line manager who had the purse strings, oh, can you float this idea that Alex had to your line manager? And I knew straight away, like I said, with Newton, F equals MA, every force has an equal and opposite force minus F that acts upon it. As soon as you give an idea to most people, they think of all the reasons why it's not practical, why it's not feasible, because you're telling them something and it kicks in the resistance of the mind. So what I did, I just worked with this guy without telling anyone. And I said, let's just knock up a prototype. So we knocked up a prototype, developed this glossy, I think it was a 6-page brochure with all the features in. And I just gave it to my line manager and said, oh, by the way, next time you see Karen, can you show her this? And so she did. She said, that's brilliant. She was South African. How much funding do you need? Right? So we didn't bother floating a bunch of ideas that somebody then is a senior. I've got to think of all the reasons. She's South African. Well, we can't afford this in the budget. Right? It was just a simple, wow, that's amazing. How much money do you need? Problem solved. Sure, don't tell.
I'm so glad you told us you were South African. I'm never guessed it, mate.
I didn't want to overemphasize, right? But anyway, yeah. But it worked. It worked a treat. And it's a good illustration of show, don't tell. So just a rough idea, a creative idea, to go back at some point. If you could get your overarching board to appoint some person responsible for like tech and innovation who actually would not tell people how brilliant tech is and innovation is, like I've sort of mentioned on the podcast here. They'd just start innovating. They'd just start producing products, demonstrating and showcasing the power, then inviting creative people to say, hey, have you got creative ideas? Well, if you connect it up with this AI tool, we'll be able to make your ideas come to life. Now, that could get people excited, collaborating, and into a very productive. It's not about solving problems all the time. It's about mobilizing opportunities. And I think sometimes you need a vehicle like that motivates, but has that principle of not floating an idea that will get resisted, but setting up some structures that people can see actually work, because then the participation, the buy-in will come automatically.
Yeah. This is
we've got a frame of work, right? If we're going to use the jigsaw analogy, we've got a framework. I've seen in the group chat that Baron David Ward's affidavit stuff was brought up. Now, David on his own lost everything, but his paperwork I read his paperwork when we were in correspondence. There was nothing wrong with it. The problem what we had was there was nobody who would take this on in a big enough group that would change something. Now, if you've got the affidavit and you work it with what we were talking about with the common law courts, right? I've been to the common law courts. I've heard them say, well, we've had 400 convictions. Who's in jail? Well, nobody, because we had nobody to arrest these people. Then we went for the peace constables. So there's another jigsaw piece, but it's how do we get this court? How do we go into these court buildings and open that court for us? Because that's what we're meant to be able to do. So somebody has got that knowledge of how to do that. We've got this affidavit. We've then got the courts. We've got the sheriffs, right? I think it's only 2 or 3 weeks back, Nick, that there was 8 peace sheriffs all sentenced to 8 years in jail for trying to arrest the High Court bailiffs, saying that they had no powers and this, that, and the other, and the courts have made an example out of them. You know, how do we bring this together into a large enough group where they can't just single 8 people out of the country and say, this is what will happen to you?
Yeah, you see, now the thing with courts, so the community, right, so you have the common law courts, you have various peace constables and sheriffs, you have the community assemblies and their courts and their peace constables. The peace constables for the community assembly of the British Isles are appointed by the court of the people, and they do have authority. This has been tested, as in, and I'm sure John wouldn't mind me talking about this. John Gilbert is the founder of the community assemblies and peace constable and trainer and court adjudicator as well. Now, in the period when the medical establishment were giving out certain medical liquids. So I'm not gonna, you know what I mean, but there was a pop-up centre in a supermarket, and we had quite a few of those around the country. And John see this, so he I think he put his uniform, he had his uniform on at the time, his peace constable uniform, and went to check them out. And it was on the premise that they were abiding by the law of giving out informed consent, which has to be given before a certain thing takes place. And they didn't have enough forms. So he went off to the police station and basically said, I want some officers to go down and shut the place down. And they did, under his authority. Now, he's appointed by, the courts of the people. Now, there might be a few of you out there thinking, well, you can't do that. And I know there was something come up about Mark Kishon Christopher, another one who went to jail. I don't know the ins and outs of this. I know there has been a lot of talk about who he was and what authority he had, and maybe he didn't quite have the authority that he purported to have. Also, what you said, Paul, about the sheriffs. Now, I don't know the circumstances behind that, but were they appointed by a court of the people? I don't know. So I'll just say, so he's been sentenced to 8 years, Mr. Christopher. So it's about doing things right. But what we do, I mean,
that's what I'm getting at. I'm not like you. I've known Mark for a while, Facebook wise. I've known him for a while, but I didn't know what he was actually doing. But then all of a sudden he's come up, and whatever they've tried to do, they've claimed that they've had this authority because the people have it. They've now turned that on their head and saying, these people think that they don't have to pay council tax, but they do have to pay council tax. And this is what happens to people who think they don't have to pay council tax. They're using it. So whether they've made a mistake or they've not done something right, they've done something that has been able to almost give them a chess move and checkmate. You know, we've got to now counteract what they've done wrong before we can do anything right. So this is where Alex comes in about his jigsaw pieces. Like I said, all these different people have a piece of the puzzle. When we set up a system alongside this, the mirror image of this system would be perfect because there's nothing wrong with the system. But it's, as you say, if we take the system on head on, this system's been in place. This is the Babylon system. It's been here a while. And it makes a lot of money and a lot of wealth, and it gives a lot of power to people who just wouldn't have it. And we have been taught from very young to give them that power. And the education system dumbs the people down enough to just do chop, chop, busy, busy, work, work, bang, bang.
And I think, though, with from what I've read, Mark Christopher tried to arrest a coroner, and it obviously went wrong. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but his authority was supposed to be under federal postmaster judge.
Yes,
which people have argued that he didn't have that authority because there is only so many in the world, and he wasn't one of them. So,
he's made that easier for him by acting as something he isn't. Now,
well, this is probably why he was jailed. This is a thing. So, if he is acting in a way, he's causing harm to other. He's trying to arrest somebody. Now, we as people, if we see a crime committed, we have as much power as the police as people to stop that crime happening. But I mean, without knowing the circumstances behind it. I mean, I've only heard a little bit, but trying to make a comment on it, then I would be wrong if I commented wrongly. So, but I don't know. I suppose if you looked into it, the ins and outs, and the same with the sheriff guys, possibly that they may have acted wrongly, which of course they're going to fail of a system. Now, the system, if it was right, would be certainly less harsh. But these guys out there with their money making system and their authority, what they are going to hold on to, till grim death, basically. Anybody who comes for it, they will make an example. But it can be beat, but it can only be beat in the right ways. And years ago there was the common law way. I mean, you said about Baron David Ward. I mean, I looked through his affidavit, and yes, it makes a lot of sense. But I've asked questions of people who are promoting the affidavit, that what successes have you have? And all I get back is, have you read it? Yes, I've read it. Well, yeah, okay, so I understand it. I understand what it's saying. 650 MPs never rebutted these statements. Of course, then, if it's an unrebutted statement, it's a fact in law. But then who has used it in a courtroom and walked out with it? Now, I know that Baron David Ward, he fell of it, though he did actually win against some council, didn't he? Or maybe a couple of times he used it against enforcement agents. But bugger off is probably just as useful for that situation. But
made an example out of him, Nick. They took
Yeah, they
everything.
did. Yeah. Well, look at John Harris.
Yeah.
You know, brilliant in the stuff that he did. But you know, there was this film
The
circulating.
thing with John Harris, he made it so simple to understand.
Yeah.
The difference was people ran with what John said, which was the force of law and law, which was the difference.
Yeah.
So, as a man, that doesn't apply because it's a different jurisdiction. What people were doing, though, they were running off into commercial courts and standing in a commercial court and saying, "I'm a man."
Yeah.
And the judge would look at the utility agent and say, "He says he's a man." And they'd go, "Yeah, we agree." And he'd look back at him and he'd go, "Well, I've no contract." And he'd go, "He says he's no contract." "Yeah, we agree." And the judge would go, "How are you going to pay this bill then?"
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have no contract and I'm a man is what they were trying to use again now. It's so clear that that is true. But to go stand there and say that when it's all based on presumption,
Yeah.
well, you talk about that, mate. We'll just do what we're doing. So it's like reversing everything and saying, well, this is my foundation. So you come to me now. This is what I'm saying. The problem we've got is in the court system, we haven't got judges that will be selected for our hearings to listen as an individual of unbiased. There's a biased nature to this. Why?
Yeah.
Because the judicial system steals all the equity from the people and siphons it off to the Privy Council and the Lords, who all live off it. So if we started to get good judges, and I know there's still good judges in this system.
Yeah.
I've met one, and there's still some good barristers. We've had solicitors speak to us and say, "You don't tell us these things. Do you not think we pay these bills? Do you not think we pay council tax?" But when we've got people coming in saying, "I'm not paying council tax because you fund terrorists," we're not going to help you with that.
Yeah.
This is my pension. This is my holiday home that you want me to put on the line while you're saying you're funding terrorists. You know,
it's yeah. I mean, this is the contract thing. You know, councils, right? They send you a demand. You know, like in they say it's a bill, but if it was contractual, then you really should, you know, have the ability to question that. Well, you know, okay, right, will you send me a breakdown of everything, you know, the services you're providing, and I will contract to the ones that I want. But they won't do that, of course. That has been tried and challenged, but then, you know, the whole thing of the bulk courts, the rubber stamping, the judge not applying his mind to each and every case. You know, the counsel is saying he's not paid, she's not paid. Judge is going, boof, boof, yeah, okay, because, you know, you're not paying your bills. But you know, there are circumstances, you know, to that. And if you've got a grievance or a dispute, you know, this is you know, something that obviously you can use in whatever circumstances. But
you see where they're absolutely going to commit fraud, though. In my case, I put case law before a judge. Now, case law, if it's applicable, it must be applied.
Absolutely, yeah.
My judge picked the case law up and turned it over, put her hand on top of it and said, "I can't see that.
Yeah.
I take the bank's word that you owe them money."
Yeah.
That is complete fraud, because I can't take you into a court and say, "Judge, Nick owes me £10,000, but he won't pay me. Nick, I believe Mr. Webster, pay him." That doesn't work like that. So a mate of mine, Anthony Carlin, who was a Northern Ireland police officer at the time, back in 2014-15, made case law against Santander. It's Carlin Hughes versus Santander. And read between the lines, basically the judge was saying, "Santander, you're a very big building society, but I can't take your word that this man owes you money. You've got to prove it."
Yeah.
Well, the banks cannot prove that because they don't lend any money. So my case law should have been applied, and that would have meant bank get out.
Yes, and then this forms a precedent, doesn't it? So the more these
would commit fraud.
These judges won't. I think there was a case of council tax in Westminster. Oh God, probably over a year ago, and they had a barrister. The council had a barrister that his argument was destroyed completely before they even set into court. And I'm not quoting because I can't exactly quote this, but the bones of it was that the judge agreed that the argument set forward was great, and that it should go forward, but he was not allowed to allow it, and it was ordered that the guy had to pay money. Now, if he allowed it, it would have set a precedent. But they can't have these precedents going on. Now, I believe this will be their downfall, because it will have to come to a certain time that they're going to be accountable for their actions. I do solemnly believe that, even if I can't say it properly. But yeah, I do believe this, that they can only lie and commit fraud so much before their actions are going to trip them up at some point. And as people, we can only take so much as well. There's a lot more of us than there is of them, and this is going back to forming groups, forming assemblies, forming associations, doing something, probably not engaging with the system, make them irrelevant, like Buckminster Fuller, like Alex quoted. So this is, I think, where we have a good solution. Certainly it can't hurt to come together where we are and where we can, in our localities, regionally, nationally, start combining efforts and information and solutions to try to make headway against the things that we're up against, because at the end of the day, none of us are out of this, not one of us. You could choose to do nothing and you will still get bashed on the head, but if you still run the risk of getting bashed on the head if you come together, but it will probably be less likely. But at the end of the day, at least you've had a bloody good go, and you haven't sort of, I don't know, sat down on your arse. Not saying that any of you out there are sitting down on your arse. I don't mean to be condescending, so please understand that, but it's just a term that my father used to say, don't lay down, boy, don't lay down. Get up, don't lay down, don't give them the satisfaction. My father, he would be appalled if he was alive today. He taught me a lot of things over the years since I was a child, and not just general things in the way of life, but in the way that the system should work and is not necessarily working. Not that I took a lot of heed to it as a child. I went in sort of teenage years and beer and women and scooters and sort of having fun. But it was later in life that I come to realize that what he was saying is certainly true as I matured, which was probably after 40 years old, but
mine certainly was.
Yeah, I think a lot of us blokes probably were. I don't know, but this last few years has been quite marvelous, really, to see where we are. We couldn't have gone on like this without having, sort of, rumbles of what's, going on and awakenings. You just, I don't know, we couldn't have laid down like that. So, I'm so glad that they engineered so many things over the years, and certainly, 5 years ago or whenever it was, I think it was about 5 years ago, the engineering of something that brought us together into where we are now. And this is a world of discovery. Yeah, we're not getting things right all the time. We're still discovering, we're still moving forward. But the thing is that, we can't go backwards. We have to go forward with this. And we can't just sit down, as we will get bashed. We have to, just take what it is and get around it in the best way possible, and build what we envision, create what we want to create. I mean, I would love to have a better world where communities and people are interacting, and there's less violence and less struggle and less hunger and less homelessness and just people living better and being better to each other, and being sort of showing more compassion and more love, and getting rid of all this crap that we're seeing, whether it's all true or not, because some of the stuff that you probably see on Facebook and on Telegram may be coming from the other side. Think about that. They want you into a belief system. So what's better than to keep you believing it by doing their own stuff? Maybe some of it's AI. Quite possibly. I don't know, but all I'm doing is focusing on what is ahead, and the best ways possible that we can get around these things. And certainly it does no harm to assemble with others and create something, to sort of look at alternate ways we can sort of engage with our health. I recently just bought a rife machine, and though my voice is a bit crackly at the moment, 2 days ago I was feeling like shit, and I struck the rife machine up, and I didn't even get through the full program, and it was a digitized sample of my saliva that was being put through the machine that were finding frequencies and then doing a reverse lookup and then another program to sort the things out. And I woke up the next morning at 5 o'clock. I was on a Zoom call at 10 to 6, and I felt pretty good. I've still got this thing with my throat, but generally the cold has cleared up. I went on a rife machine probably more than 7 years ago, and this was the older version, and I had various things wrong. I had things that had gone wrong inside that needed operations, and I was sort of very weak and just crap and wasn't quite sort of working right. But what this rife machine found was pretty accurate. There was a thing called Meniere's disease, which I didn't even know what the hell that was, to be honest. But I went home from my friends and Googled it, and I found that I'd been suffering with it for 10 years, these symptoms of it. But within 6 weeks of having rife treatment, while I was at home and this was being done a few miles away, on nail clippings through my DNA, and 7 years I've been free of Meniere's disease, and this is incurable. You can go and Google it. It's an incurable disease. I had it, and it's cured. And these are some of the things that maybe we need to start rediscovering, because they've been out there for many years. The herbal medicines, the ways that we should look at various diseases, and some of the strides that people have made to combat it. And this is one of our backbones of the community health initiative, is to bring people together that can practice or that practice various different ways of healing. And I was happy to see, when I was in Cornwall about 2 weeks ago, we had a member who needed treatment, and we was able to use the emergency fund for healing, which was it all kicked into gear within hours to provide her treatment and help through the community. And this is what community does. This is what I remember as a child. In my village, you couldn't do nothing wrong at one end of the village. By the time you got home, your parents would know and be giving you a clip round the ear. But if there was somebody who was going through hardship, the community would rally round and bring them goods if there was sort of couldn't eat or something like that. And we never had a like a locked door. My father used to leave his keys in his car on the driveway. Never had a problem. Now, I know things have changed over the years, but I think that putting some of the mechanisms back into community, whether it's health, knowledge, law, whatever, food, getting
it's everything. It's everything, Nick. Not only that, but you were just talking about the frequencies. Then the frequencies have always been known. I always remember I read an article written by a psychiatrist, and he said, in 35 years of practice, I've not been able to affect a man's psyche like a piece of music, because within 3 minutes of a piece of music, it can take you through all the emotions.
Yeah.
And when we have those frequencies changed, like the music that we listen to, allegedly got changed from 432 hertz to 440, which is different when you look at the likes of Dr. Emoto, who put labels on glasses of water and then took photographs of them as it was frozen. So water that was frozen with hate on it was all distorted. And then one that had love on it was like a perfect crystallized snowflake almost. We know as we're made of this, that this will affect us more than anything. So when we are kept in a permanent state of fight or flight, like we are, and it's like you get used to it, you don't think you are. But how many times have you sat down, wherever you are, you sit down and then you realise that you've not quite relaxed, and then you let yourself relax and you go, bloody hell, I was a bit tense then. Well, we're tense on that from when we wake up all day, because we've got to get to work. Oh no, we're stuck in traffic. Now we're late for work. Now something's gone wrong at work. So all this frequency builds up, and we retain all this, and the body doesn't know what to do with itself. Then when we get things like there's illness or something like that, our body will cocoon it, make a tumour out of it. And what does our healthcare system do? Let's biopsy that. Let's cut it open and spread it everywhere. So the food has been attacked. The air is being attacked. The water's being attacked. The frequencies we sit in with the 5G masts and everything is a suit that we're all sat in. And as you said, if we do things alongside this, when there's enough of us, we just take over. But
Yeah.
we need these alliances. Now, we've gone on for 2 hours about all this stuff, but we need to now bring in the alliances that you've got coming in, because there's other groups. I can't quite remember the group off the top of my head. The girl, the lady was there at Burnley doing the talk with you.
Right. Okay. So that was Cassie Langford of the National
Yeah.
Residents Association.
National evidence, yes.
Cassie is absolutely wonderful. The work that she is doing is just crucial. Really, I mean, Cassie's a very good friend. Or I haven't known her very, very long, but we get on very, very well, and she's brilliant. She's just a force in, as I say, the work that she does, and bringing in the local residents association, which I'm linked with in Lincolnshire as well. So we have that link through CABI members to the residents associations, and it's very important to have these associations. So that is one. There is another group that we're working together with. John and myself will be interviewed by Rick from this group on Thursday. I think we've got, and this is a group called GPMS World, and this is a group that runs on divine and natural law, and basically it's to get a consensus, a world consensus, that bringing people into an alignment to create a parallel like a parallel way of thinking, or a parallel way of being, being as spiritual as well as physical. We have now is it the Knowledge University. This is through Gloria Moss, who are linked to us. So we have, say, groups that are aligned and linked, and that share. There we have, say, Gloria Moss from the Knowledge University. So she's writing a whole the thing for homeschooling. I can't remember. Was it prospectus, consensus? I can't remember. There's a term for it. I can't think it off my head, but she's into that part of the and putting out knowledge and truth. There's Annie Barr from, I can't remember the name of her organisation, but it's,
can they find all these on CABI? On the
yeah, they can find some of them. Yes, they can. Now the website itself is ever evolving. It's actually quite a massive website full of a lot of information. So there is a lot more to go on, but generally through that are the assembly information. But we have the Rumble and YouTube channels called the Community Assembly of the British Isles and Assembly of the World, that where Anna Isabel, our, let's say, in-house, our friend and fellow member, and she runs individual channels as well as interviews for CABI and the Assemblies of the World, and she interviews the various organisations that are linked with us. So she did one not so long ago with Gloria Moss. She's doing one with Rick from GPMS. But this is all about organisations, sharing. Now, whether we're not saying that organisations come to us and they become a part of CABI, but we certainly would like to work alongside any organisation, and we're working alongside the IRB. This was the Irish Public Brotherhood, not the IRA. Don't get mixed. So the IRB are a sovereign Irish group, and we have treaties going backwards and forwards with those. So we're in a stage of recognition, writing up a constitutional framework, and aligning in the ways that we can. We may have the Sovereign Shetland group as well, which hopefully will be coming on board. We're in talks with them. People's Assembly of New Zealand, a good friend of mine who is running one part of that, and they are looking to align with CABI. They're still the People's Assembly. The IRB is still the IRB. We're not here to take any group over. We wouldn't be as we wouldn't want to do that. But we did have the People's Assembly come to us not so long ago. This was in Somerset, and they found us, and they're switching over to us. I don't, for whatever reason, it's their reason, but they're bringing their members over into the community assemblies, probably because of our framework is quite well established, and has the elements there that that are sort of the foundations for good communities going forward. So there is 12 organisations up to now, and I can't name them all because I don't know them all. That's the thing. So we have people that come into our core team meetings that are from other organisations that wish to exchange knowledge or work with us on whatever level. But we're finding ways to come together, whether that's whole or in part, sharing information that works, and that there is many things that the community assemblies are not providing for at the moment. When we're trying to work with the farmers, this is something that we're trying to do. We haven't got a knowledge university. This is where Gloria Moss came in. And she joined the community assembly, and she's sharing what her organisation brings. So it just people working together, be it individual or groups, finding the best ways possible that everybody can benefit from and move forward, whether it's health or the things that we've discussed. And certainly health is a big one, and I totally agree with the frequency there, because there was not just the water, there was one done on rice, I believe, and that was where they loved one, hated another, and ignored one other jar of rice. And the one that went bad the worst was the one that was ignored, completely ignored. But these frequencies are what we speak about every day. Prayer, you look at prayer. So what is prayer? And I have a friend of mine in Australia that was on his deathbed, and his wife got a prayer circle together. Now, this is not in a religious sort of aspect, but people were praying for him around the world, and he recovered the next morning. And
me and Alex will testify that we're not religious. We've never been religious, but when we pray, we've seen prayers be answered. I myself have had answered prayer just recently. I've very often been far too busy in here to see those prayers being answered. But now that I'm seeing it, I've got a peace. So the last 3-4 years that have been insanely hell. I mean, the last 4 years were worse than 10 years ago. The PTSD being linked to what happened with the armed police 10 years ago, the PTSD was worse because sometimes I said to you off air that when you have that panic or that anxiety attack, you've no idea where it's come from. Nothing's happened. Nothing has changed, but you're feeling this. So again, that comes down to the trauma, the frequencies, the vibration that holds at, the fight or flight thing that you're constantly under. The whole of society is under this. What I was going to ask you, Nick, is from the time that we did the talk in Burnley, have you seen CABI and that progress? Are you seeing things moving in the right direction? Because me and Alex will constantly say that we have faith in God and we have faith in the things that we can't see, because hope is hope and faith in the things that aren't seen. Because why are you hoping for something that's already here that you can see? So hope is based on something that you can't see. Now, when you can let go of that and trust, you just see things start to change. So I'm wondering, because you're getting people to come together, and what me and Alex have seen is, even when we aren't talking about Jesus, God, Christians, or Scripture, there are people who are coming in who are saying, well, I'm a Christian now. I saw this. I found this. It's unbelievable, because you'd think that you'd have to battle on that. I've said quite often that I lost more family and friends when I told them the gas were free than when I said I was a born-again Christian. They didn't bat an eyelid about that, but telling them that they shouldn't pay the bills, they wanted to hang, draw and quarter me.
Yeah.
So have you, I mean, it's only, I can't remember how long ago it is. It's just months, isn't it, really, since we did that?
I'm sort of thinking it's nearly a year since we did that in Hapton, wasn't it? May not be. Oh, hang on. Let's see. It was,
this year.
was it January, February, March.
Yeah, it was round about. Yeah.
So it's not been a year, but in that time we're 104 assemblies now across the British Isles. We have a couple of more international assemblies. We have many more that are, sort of up and coming. See our structure, as I say, our framework requires 3 facilitators to create an assembly, and there is a lot of assemblies, or a lot of up and coming assemblies, with two facilitators. Well, to facilitate assembly is just really passing knowledge from or information from regional, national, down to local. It's not a big deal at all, but people will do it and some won't. But so over the last few months, so we've seen definitely an influx of people and a growth in the assemblies. Now I'm just trying to think how many assemblies we had a few months ago, and I'm sort of saying we've probably put in nearly 45 assemblies in a space a few months. We've nearly, not quite doubled. I'd have to go back and have a look at that, or ask John where he was back in March. But we've been, the people, I think, sort of feel a time of need, that they need to do something. And certainly, we have up in Lancs there with Carlo. He's been going great guns with forming the Lancashire assemblies. I've seen growth here in Lincolnshire. There's been 5 assemblies created in the last couple of months. Thetford, the guys in Thetford, who you probably heard and seen the guys having a go at the council.
You saw that video.
Great bunch of guys. I know them well. I've known them for probably a couple of years.
Because they were in that format, in that council chamber, the council couldn't shut them down. They didn't know what to do.
No, but now they're an assembly. The things are going to probably change for them. They're in a council watch format, but now they've come together and formed an assembly. You know, and things are, you know, happening all over, and you know, it's up to, you know, people. I mean, you know, they people may have heard of us, they may have not, and you know, it's up to where they are at the moment. Now, I go around and do talks. I've been doing back in Lincolnshire, which, you know, really I should have stopped in Lincolnshire. No, but you know, I go where, you know, where I'm asked or where I'm needed. So, you know, I talk about the assemblies, and we was able to get some really good people on board to see that they could do something with a community assembly in Lincolnshire, and you know, this is how it grows. But they had to join because of what they see they could do with it. It's not that what we necessarily can provide, it's what they can do with the, you know, to do with the framework, and within, you know, the framework of you know, assembly and the right to have an assembly. So, you know, it is completely theirs. I mean, we obviously, you know, we have things to guide them if they need it. But you know, with anything that you know, joining any group or, you know, doing anything, it has to be what you want to do and what is beneficial for you, you know, for you, not because somebody says it's necessarily good, though you can, you know, you do sometimes go with other people's recommendations, but you know, you do things because you want something out of it, and we're seeing that a lot of things that have gone on over the years, and people have tried and they've not got necessarily out of it what they wanted. That, not saying that some of the stuff isn't powerful, but things evolve. So, you know, you have the associations and the perceived authorities are changing with the times as well. So there will come a point where I think they will be in a corner, and I think they are fast getting in that corner, and there'll be a head-to-head at some point. And I'm not, you know, anything violent or anything like that, but there will be a point where they're gonna have to say, look, nearly swore again, bugger it, that, you know, hands up, you've got us, but this will only take a weight of people to, you know, to enact this. It's not going to be just one person, you know, in the street or in the town. It needs to be the consensus of the public and public opinion that drives this, and you know.
Do you see that, Nick? Do you see that yet? Do you see?
I'm seeing it. Yeah, I'm seeing it's close. Now, I'm not saying that I'm psychic or anything, but I'm feeling a change. I am seriously, you know, feeling a change. You know, some of you might be feeling it, that something's happening. Something's
moved. Me and Alex were talking about it weeks ago, that something had changed, hadn't it, Alex? You could feel it in the atmosphere that something was different here.
What was it? Was it around October the 21st? Sorry.
Well, I mean, it's an interesting one, and in fact, I'm just like conscious of the time. I've got a funeral tomorrow, and I'm going to clear off in a minute.
I was going to wrap it up for 10:30. That's why I brought you in. No.
What I'm thinking, because this does sort of touch on the Trump phenomenon of late, regards to what people make of Trump. What I'm going to do, because I think, you know, regards to what people think about political operators, you know, they might think about Trump, they might think about Farage, they might say it's all a scam, the whole political system's corrupt. But sometimes the lesser of several evils is better. But what I would say is, and this is just a word in deference to Taylor, because I've got to say something here which is conspicuous and is worth a discussion, because I think it impacts not just the political but the cultural. So even if we don't talk about, obviously, what he spoke about a lot with QAnon, we can just talk about his idea about the white hats. And I just wanted to point out a bit of news which is interesting and might support that theory, which is it's interesting that a week after Trump gets in, Justin Welby resigns as the Archbishop of Canterbury. I don't think that that is a coincidence. And I believe that obviously he was already talking about, they have the first trans priest. They were talking about getting rid of the word church. Now, you know what's happened with the Pope recently saying all religions lead to God. But obviously in the Church of England...
Father was non-binary. He's not a father anymore. They wanted to change.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. So all that stuff had happened, and he was recently talking very brashly about how they were going to get rid of the word church, and it was going to be replaced by community. There was no sign of him leaving at all. Nothing. He was cock a hoop. All of a sudden, a week after the election, he resigns because of this whole connection with cover-ups and sexual offences. They weren't anywhere on the radar. I think that's a little bit of a potential circumstantial doffing of the cap to this white hat concept, because clearly behind the scenes, there's been a changing of the guard. It was a landslide victory. He won the popular vote. He obviously won overall the number of votes to get in with the Electoral College, and on every metric, the House and the Senate. So it looks to me like these are kind of things that Taylor was talking about. And I think if you look at the Justin Welby thing, he's in a different country to the US, but it does look as if some power shift has taken place even in that first week, and Welby is now toast, which obviously I'm very pleased about.
Well, I was talking to a good source a couple of weeks back, and she was telling me that, you know, after we were talking about all this kind of stuff, and then we've corresponded since Trump has got in, and she was saying that Trump and Farage, they're our boys. That's what she was saying. So we know that Trump and Farage like each other a lot. Is Farage going to be coming in on a wave to be our Trump type thing? Because Trump is saying all these things. I know what Taylor was saying about all this. This stuff is going to be bringing this new peace. Well, we've heard what happens when peace and safety is announced, right? But the thing that we're also hearing is Project 2025 and what all this might entail about executive orders. Well, somebody who gets executive orders like Hitler did, we're doing it for you. We're doing this for you. We're going after these people because of you. We're going for these bankers because of you. Well, you might have to give something up. Now, we did have a debate last week whether any rights had been given up. Rights have been given up. Patriot Act 1 and 2 that was written before 9/11, that took away rights, but people were happy to give them up because they thought they were in real danger. Again, this is all Stockholm Syndrome stuff, and those people will fight to save this system. The thing that what I said to Taylor was, when I emailed him, I said, well, is this a new world order that is going to defeat the new world order? And he's just said, no, it's much simpler than that. This is just the world order that's going to be the last one. So it's still a world order. It's just not going to be based on globalists and the WEF and stuff. Well, if you build all these baddies up, and then somebody comes along and goes, I'm going to defeat these baddies. Look at what I'm doing. Look at this. Look at that. I'm going to build this wall and stop all these immigrants. Ron Paul asked a good question. Is this wall that's going to keep all these illegal immigrants out, is it to keep them out, or is it to keep us in? Who knows? Who knows? Because it works both ways. We can keep them out. Look, Taylor's already triggered. Now you're not understanding, Webby. He thinks that I don't understand what he's saying. Alex, we've debated this, haven't we? We know what he's saying. But we also know there's a bigger picture that we can't just throw all our stuff into that pot and say, that's our man. Because
I think the way to say it is
if we're going to put faith in a man, we're done.
there's a cosmic level, there's a cosmic dimension to this battle. Everybody understands that is in place to some degree, and many people will differ or disagree about the nature of that story. We don't see it directly. We don't see angels directly. You know, the Greek word for angel is angelos, which is just the messenger. They're not necessarily a supernatural being every time, but the reality is that there is definitely something that transcends our ability, and we have to have faith in the story that we believe makes the best sense of that. So all the human actors are potentially suspects.
Yes.
And we have to watch everybody.
That's simple. That's simple, and that's common sense. Because
Yeah.
when we need a hero, and we've seen in history, they document it. When they need a hero, we will provide them with one.
Yeah.
So why would that suddenly not apply now? That's why I'm skeptical of everything, and we have to
And of
keep
course,
skeptical.
it says in the New Testament that the devil comes dressed as an angel of light. So, you know, ultimately, all counterfeiters. I used to say, you know, that when democracy is in place, the devil will stand for election. Basically, any corrupt person sponsored as a marionette by a puppeteer, right, can come along, but that puppeteer that we don't see can be pulling those strings and do anything to corrupt that system and actually turn it to their advantage. Of course, we just see the human actions and we tend to get taken in by the fact of, oh, it looks like this, it resembles that, because most lies involve decoying by giving us some of the truth while he's smuggling a bunch of lies underneath it. So we need spiritual discernment as well.
And it only has to be subtle. He didn't say you'd surely die, did he? He said you'd be like gods.
Yeah,
Did he?
exactly.
Oh, did he? He did say something about knowing. Oh, that's all it needed. That's all it
And
needed.
now in the new age, Paul, everybody is God. So there you
Exactly.
go.
We're all little G's, Nate. All little G's. It's ridiculous,
Yeah.
isn't it? Nick, we're coming up to the end of time, so
Okay.
it's been great having you on. I'm so happy that
Thanks for having me on, mate. No, it's been brilliant. Thank you very much.
like I said, we want people who've got solutions for people to at least go and look at to see whether they can formulate. You mentioned earlier that you just before that you should have stayed in Lincoln and not gone anywhere else, right? But the problem is, when I tried to get meetings up and running in my town, nobody was interested. You know, you're a pariah in your own town. Nobody, everybody thinks you're a nutter. But now all of a sudden you can't pay bills. They want to know what you were talking about.
Yeah.
Still in my own town, they don't. You know, but I go to Burnley and people know me and people want to know things. So I'm known outside of my local area, but in my local area, not even my family and friends want to know about it. Oh, you're talking about these bills again. You know, you just can't
Well,
win with people until that
but
knock on the.
there's a really good point on that. There was one particular incident in the Gospels when Jesus wanted to deliver a man of an affliction, but he took him out of the town first before he dealt with it. And the implication is really clear that almost like the spiritual atmosphere was so corrupted in that place that he wouldn't have been able to be liberated unless he'd been taken out of that place, because that place had so formulated everyone's mindset. It was
Yeah.
so thick upon everybody that he needed to be taken out of it first, given a different perspective before he could be released. And I think, like when he said, a prophet is not without honor except amongst his own people. It's a similar sort of principle. That familiarity does breed contempt, and it gets colonized by negative spiritual energy, no matter how you see them as demons or whatever it is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we've got the Facebook page for CABI
Yeah.
on the in the description below this video. So have you got other websites? And
Yes. Did you want me to say it on the
Yeah,
camera?
yeah.
Or yeah. So
say it on camera and then send it me as well, and I'll edit it. And I'll
yeah. So our main website is www.ca-britishisles all one word.com, and that's the main website. So that will take you through the various information pages. We have the CABI Facebook group, which is a public group. So, you know, you don't have to be a member of CABI to, you know, to access that. And then we have our Telegram group, which again is a public information group for the community assemblies, and that is called the Assembly Hub, and that's at t.me TCABI, t.me/TCABI. But I will send Paul that, send you that.
I'll put it
And yeah, so that really, you know, that really is you know, sort of it on the website front. But you know, this is totally up to people. You can have a look round, you know, join us if it resonates, if you will. We'll love to have you on board, of course. And if you know, you want to bring things, you know, to it, that's great. But what we are really looking for are people who want to do things and meet up in the physical. It's not about, you know, having groups online. We're not an online organization. It is about forming assemblies and you know, meeting up with other assembly members physically, or, you know, keeping in touch by phone, or you know, sort of the things that are not necessarily online. And you know, the more that you can bring, the better, of course. And yeah, if it resonates, join us, please. And
Have you any talks coming up, Nick?
Sorry?
Have you any talks coming up?
I have one in Cleethorpes, which I had to put off for a little while due to this cold, but I think that will probably be on now in the next couple of weeks. I'm just trying to think what's going on in Lincolnshire. I know Carlo has the PSC meeting in Hapton, and actually Cassie is going to be there. So for, you know, anybody who is in the area around the Burnley area, Lancashire area, or wants to travel, that event is on. That is actually advertised on our CABI Facebook group, and that is a sort of a CABI event, but the floor is you know, is open. And Cassie will be doing, you know, her talk for the National Residents Association, which, you know, is a very, very good organisation to be a part of, and it's, you know, it's proactive. So you know, you can learn a lot, or, you know, choose to, you know, to put action into it. So I'm just trying to think what's going on around the country. I think there was one is up and coming in Leeds, but we will share all that on the Facebook group as it comes in as events, and on the Telegram group as well. And we're looking to put more and more things, you know, together. And there is, you know, sharings from, you know, like the stand in the parks and things that, you know, we can all share and attend as well. So yeah, it's a group effort, you know, and we're all together in this, and yeah, we just gotta just do it, haven't we?
We certainly have. Well, thanks for coming on, mate, and hopefully come back on in the new year and with some more. But if you've got anything that's coming up, or events or anything like that, drop us a line and we'll advertise it. You know,
Brilliant. Yeah, thank you.
We've got to get communities, individuals talking to other individuals to bring them together.
It's crucial.
Towns, and we all have different bits. You know, when I tried to organise meetings, no one was interested. I couldn't get anybody interested to help me.
Yeah.
But maybe somebody who's got a better skill in that set for me can do it. At some point, because we are all in this together, not the fake we're all in this together, we're literally all in this. This is they're trying to extract blood from stone at the minute.
Yeah.
And there's not much left to give. So Anyway, I appreciate your time, pal. Thank
Paul,
you.
it's been wonderful. Alex, thank you very much.
Thanks,
Yeah,
Nick.
yeah, appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah,
God
enjoy
bless, mate. I'll be in touch.
Yeah.
it. Good night to you both.
No,
And everybody
Good night.
else. Good night.
Bye, mate.
Right.
Well, that's another show done and dusted, son.
It sure is.
I'll keep you in my prayers for the funeral tomorrow,
Thank you.
and the guys and that. So I'm going to be setting off early in the morning. So
Yeah,
I'll catch up with you at some point.
Yeah, I think it starts at 12, but there's about 3 different stages to it. So there's the original church service, then the creme, then back for this sort of reception. But as soon as that's done, I'll drop you a line and I'll make my way up.
We'll take it from there, son. We'll take it
We
from
will.
there. All right, Alex, I'll speak to you in a sec, mate.
Cheers, mate.
So, I hope that Nick gave people some food for thought in this. Again, it does come back to people talking to each other and seeing what they can do, and maybe going onto these sites like CABI and places like that to see what they're doing, see what they're talking about, see if you can apply it in your area, see if you know other people who can help you apply it, and we can challenge the councils, because we've got to start locally. We can't take a group of people in Lee and go and challenge in London. It's not going to be able to be done. But we can challenge our own local councils if we can organise and if we can start looking at the right kinds of information, and not people saying, no, well, it's this way, it's this way, it's this way. Let's put it all together and pick all the best bits out. I think it's all that we can do. There's no other way to do it, boys and girls. We've got to come together. We've got to put a stop to this, what's going on somehow. Relying on man, putting our faith in somebody, I don't think will work, because we've done it so often. And it always backfires on us. We get the promises, we get the lies. They can tell lies legally, these politicians. It's called parliamentary privilege. So they can tell us exactly what we need to hear. And these ear ticklers, people love it. But we want the truth. And the truth not only will set you free, but it's going to get dirty. It's got to get dirty, because this world is only going one way. It's going to get worse. It's got to get worse so people can see, because at some point, every knee's going to bow. Every knee will bow. Who is it you're going to bow to? That's the question. See you next week, God willing. Good night, God bless.
Your gas is free, your gas is free in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free in a debt-based economy. Your gas is free, your gas is free in a debt-based economy. Here's the Webster Report with Paul the Gasman Webster.